In today's episode of Paul is Right Again, the South Korean Minister of Defense has said that it appears that North Korea is going to be sending troops to fight in Ukraine. Just what does this mean for the battlefield, and what exactly is Russia thinking? I'm Paul, U.S. Army combat veteran. Let's talk about it. Okay, so this was a crazy story. Again, as you guys know, about a week ago, we reported on the North Korean officer contingent that was killed bizarrely close to the front lines of Ukraine. And while the official story that they gave was that that officer contingent was on a training mission, observing how Russian forces train their troops, the thing that's sort of a head scratcher is that Russia doesn't train its troops in range of U.S. military equipment, at least not at scale. And so what it appeared that they were doing instead was actually preparing to take this information about how the Russian military operates, bring it back to their home country, likely to integrate North Korean fighting forces into Russian formations. And so it sounds like the South Korean defense minister has said, yep, that's the case. According to remarks he gave to the South Korean parliament, he said that North Korea is likely to deploy members of its regular armed forces to Ukraine in support of Russia. This was according to their Minister of Defense Tuesday. But here's the actual quote, and I think this is really significant. Quote, as Russia and North Korea have signed a mutual defense treaty akin to a military alliance, the possibility of such a deployment is highly likely. And this is his statement to lawmakers during a parliamentary audit session. Now, this statement, again, it's translated from Korean, so bear in mind that some of it may be a little bit squishy in terms of meaning. But one, the actual wording of the Russian and North Korean defense treaty that was public only mentioned mutual support in the case of an attack, which support in the international community is a catch-all term. So it could be as little as North Korea saying, we formally condemn the Ukrainians for attacking those poor innocent Russians. Right? That would be support, technically. And so the fact that South Korea assesses actually no, this is a military alliance, that there were sort of off-the-table agreements made that involved actual force-for-force military cooperation is significant. And it's even more significant about his phrasing, saying the possibility of a North Korean troop deployment is highly likely. And that's not an accident, because intelligence officials, particularly somewhere like North Korea, that aligns in a lot of ways with the Western NATO military tradition, they don't use words like highly likely on accident. Here's a chart here that actually is from the Economist, but it's sourced from the UK's Defense Intelligence Guide and the US Director of National Intelligence. This is a standardized way that intelligence officers assess their forecasts, right? And so you can see that the phrase highly likely appears when an event is north of 75% likely to happen. That's using the UK standards, right? The US doesn't have highly likely. It has very likely for north of 75 or about north of 80% likelihood. And then almost certain is just south of 100%, right? 100% would be like we're not 100% sure there were North Korean officers killed, but the fact that nobody denied it and many sources on the ground confirmed it says that it's, again, almost certain to have happened. So the key phrase there is that they think it's about 80% certain that North Korea is going to be sending its troops to fight in Ukraine. Now, we're going to talk about what exactly North Korea can bring to the fight and why Russia needs them so bad. But first, of course, if you haven't picked up your Strike Gum, what's stopping you guys? It is the superior energy drink alternative. If you're tired of wasting $5 a pop on a Red Bull that tastes like cough medicine, we created Strike Gum for you. It has 0 sugar. It has all the caffeine of an energy drink. And, oh yeah, you get 5 pieces in a pack. So instead of getting 1 Red Bull, right, you've got the equivalent of 5 energy drinks in each pack of Strike Gum. So throw it in your glove box, your gym bag, keep it in your home office, wherever you need energy, pop it, chew it, and get back at it. So check us out at strikegum.com. We've got, of course, the free shipping on all subscriptions. So if you are like the thousands of people who have chewed your first piece of Strike Gum and said, what was I doing drinking all those energy drinks? I got to order more of this Strike Gum. We have you hooked up. So check the link in the description, strikegum.com. It's a no-brainer. Okay, so let's talk about how big the North Korean army is. The North Korean army is big as fuck. I don't know what else to tell you. These guys are the second largest army in the world by numbers. They chew up 26% of the North Korean GDP. That puts them, 4 times the next largest country as a share of GDP. The Saudis supposedly are close. But they also have a mandatory military service from age 18 to 30. And they have 1.3 million active personnel. So this should tell you, right? Their ground force is absolutely massive. And they have, now, in North Korea, because they're such an incredibly impoverished country, they oftentimes have their military perform duties that we don't think of as being military in nature at all. Like, for example, repairing a roadway or fixing a bridge, even directing traffic. Those are all military functions. And it's simply because, again, literally all working men during their first decade and a half of their working years are in the military. You literally, you can't have a country function where it loses that level of military of working men. Certainly not somewhere like North Korea, that's had that level of conscription for years. But that also means that there's a match made in heaven here. And here's why. Russian losses in Ukraine continue to escalate, right? Putin's definitely patting himself on the back, right? His troops are making tiny progress across the front line, and Ukrainian forces keep bounding backwards. But in the process, of course, Ukrainians are inflicting an insane volume of casualties, and the UK Ministry of Defense even confirms it. This number of about 1,300 a day is actually, again, confirmed by the UK Ministry of Defense. So an independent assessment has said, yes, this is exactly how the Russians are fighting and losing troops. And so if you're North Korea, right, and you know what the Russian troops make, their sign-on bonuses are between $15,000 and $20,000 plus another $6,000 to $8,000 a month. That's crazy money by Russian standards. And so the North Koreans are saying, listen, we can get a lot of good stuff out of this. One, we get to train our troops, and our officers really is what they care about, in how to fight a Western organized military using Soviet-era equipment that we already have. Two, we get to have our troops earn a lot of money, right, working as these Russian soldiers in a country that's one of the poorest in the world. Three, we get to cement our partnership with Russia, whose military is also now one of the largest in the world. And, oh yeah, Russia has all the inside intel and the tech and tactics to fight the evil West. And so for North Korea, it's a no-brainer, right? Remember, this is a country that has no problem imprisoning millions of its own people for specious crimes at best. So sending them to get killed in Ukraine is like a mercy to some of these guys, right? It's considered a favor by the North Koreans to let these again, poor conscripts fight and die. So anyway, I'm going to keep you abreast of this story as we learn more, which we definitely will, because again, it's the North Koreans. They'll end up in Ukrainian prison camps soon enough, right? Of course, I'm sure Kim Jong-un has his own stance on North Koreans being taken prisoner. Anyway, that's all I had, guys. Thank you so much to our Colonel tier members, as well as our Lieutenant tier members. I couldn't do this without you guys. I appreciate you so much, and I will see you all in the next one. Cheers. Let's get the last guys. Cheers.